Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I am Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the top headlines. At least 20 people are killed after a bus collides with a two-wheeler and catches fire in the state of Andhra Pradesh in southern India. Japan's new Conservative Prime Minister vows to elevate ties with the United States to new heights ahead of President Donald Trump's visit, while expressing concern over Chinese military activities and promising a tougher stance on immigration. 4 people have been killed and another 12 wounded at a train station in northern Ukraine after a man detonated an explosive device during document checks. A Turkish court dismisses a case centred on alleged vote buying that sought to oust the main opposition CHP leader, a move that could ease tensions after a year-long legal crackdown on the party. And more than 1,000 people, mostly Chinese nationals, have fled into Thailand this week after Myanmar's military raided one of the country's largest scam centres. We begin in Washington, where the Trump administration continues its defence of the new H-1B visa policy, one that has sparked multiple lawsuits and strong pushback from American business groups. The administration faces growing legal challenges over its decision to impose a $100,000 fee on new H-1B visa applicants. The White House on Thursday said the move is meant to prioritise American workers and curb fraud in the visa system. The Trump administration has vowed to fight the lawsuits in court, insisting the actions on the H-1B policy are lawful.
Fight these lawsuits in court. The president's main priority has always been to put American workers first and also to strengthen our visa system. We know for far too long the H-1B visa system has been spammed with fraud, basically, and that's driven down American wages. So the president wants to refine this system, which is part of the reason he implemented these new policies. These actions are lawful, they are necessary, and we'll continue to fight this battle in court.
Well, this response comes days after the US Chamber of Commerce filed a legal challenge against the $100,000 H-1B fee. The lawsuit argues that the new fee violates the Immigration and Nationality Act. The Act requires visa costs for immigrants to reflect government processing expenses. But the lawsuit claims the $100,000 fee is far more than what the US usually spends on processing an H-1B visa. The lawsuit underlines the new H-1B fee would make it impossible for small and mid-sized businesses to hire high-skilled foreign talent, calling it cost-prohibitive and damaging to US competitiveness. Facing rising backlash, the US Immigration Agency issued a clarification on October the 19th. It said existing visa holders and students already in the United States won't be required to have their US employers pay the new fee. The exemption covers students moving from F1 to H-1B visas and professionals switching from L1 to H-1B status. Officials said the clarification ensures continuity for foreign graduates who are already part of the US workforce. For Indians in the US, the policy remains deeply consequential. Indians make up about 70% of all H-1B visa holders and over a quarter of international students in the United States. Reports say the $100,000 fee could force many firms to scale back hiring or shift operations abroad. Additionally, it could cost the American economy billions of dollars in long-term losses. The Trump administration insists the rule will protect American jobs, but questions remain that the policy might alienate the very talent pool that fuels the US economy. Moving on to diplomatic tensions between the United States and Canada. President Donald Trump has announced an end to trade talks with Ottawa, just weeks after what seemed like a friendly White House meeting between himself and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. In a post on his Truth Social account on Thursday, Trump said all trade negotiations with Canada were terminated. The reason? An anti-tariff ad campaign from Canada's Ontario province, which Trump called fake and interfering. Trump accused Canada of misquoting former President Ronald Reagan on trade policies. The Ronald Reagan Foundation later claimed that Ontario's ad had used selective audio and video from a 1987 Reagan radio address. It said the ad misinterpreted Reagan's remarks and that it was reviewing legal options. The ad featured Reagan warning that high tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation and trade wars. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford first posted the ad on social media on October the 14th. Ford later announced that his government will spend $75 million on ads to air across the United States, all featuring Reagan's message to highlight the economic costs of trade barriers. The fallout of Canadian anti-tariff ad comes barely 2 weeks after Carney's visit to Washington, a meeting where Trump had described Carney as a world-class leader and promised a positive outcome on tariffs. Trump's sweeping tariffs covering steel, aluminium and autos has hit Canadian industries hard, triggering layoffs and driving up costs. Speaking a day before Trump's announcement, Carney said US trade policy had fundamentally changed, warning that tariffs were returning to levels last seen during the Great Depression. He described the shift as a rupture and urged Canadians to be braced for sacrifices as Ottawa rethinks its economic strategy. Despite the breakdown in talks, both countries continue to operate under the USMCA, covering trade between the US, Canada, and also Mexico. Signed during Trump's first term, the deal ensures that about 85% of trade between these nations remains tariff-free. Carney has said preserving the USMCA remains his top priority ahead of its scheduled review in 2026. Trump and Carney are expected to cross paths again at the ASEAN summit in Malaysia and the APEC forum in South Korea in the coming days. But with Trump claiming the suspension of trade talks, ties between the two countries are headed for a new period of economic and political strain. Moving on to the rising tensions between Washington and Moscow after the United States imposed new sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies. Responding to the sanctions, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he would not bow to pressure from the West. President Putin called the sanctions an unfriendly act and said that they would not significantly impact Russia's economy. He, however, admitted that some losses were expected.
Now regarding the new sanctions, first of all, there is nothing new here. Yes, they are of a serious nature for us, of course, this is understandable, and they will have certain consequences, but still they will not significantly affect our economic well-being.
President Putin described the move as an attempt to pressure Russia and stated that no self-respecting country acts under pressure. Putin also warned that the restrictions could raise global oil prices and said that President Trump should think about who his administration is really working for. On Friday, a Kremlin spokesperson said that Russia is analysing the latest sanctions and will act accordingly to the country's interests. Meanwhile, the Russian leader warned that if the United States supplied Ukraine with Tomahawk cruise missiles, which Kyiv has been actively seeking, Russia's response would be very strong.
This is an attempt to escalate, but if these weapons are used to strike on Russia, the response will be very serious. I should even say overwhelming. Let them think about it.
President Putin also said that Moscow would continue dialogue with the Trump administration, but reiterated that Russia would not yield to outside pressure.
The US president has decided to cancel or postpone this meeting. More likely, he is talking about postponing it. What can we say? Dialogue is always better than any confrontation, any disputes, or, especially, war. That is why we have always supported continued dialogue, and we continue to support it.
Well, this comes as plans for an in-person meeting between Trump and Putin fell apart earlier this week after the US president proposed a ceasefire along current front lines, an idea Russia has rejected. Trump confirmed that the meeting had been cancelled, though the White House later said it is not completely off the table.
Between these two leaders is not completely off the table. I think the president and the entire administration hopes that one day that can happen again, but we want to make sure that there's a tangible positive outcome out of that meeting and that it's a good use of the president's time.
Meanwhile, at the White House, President Trump downplayed the immediate impact of these sanctions, saying their effect would become clearer in the next 6 months. He remarked that he was glad Putin felt confident, but added, and I quote, "Let's see how it all works out." Now, the latest move marks the first sanctions on Moscow since President Donald Trump returned to office and is aimed at cutting off vital oil revenues that fund Russia's war in Ukraine. Together, Rosneft and Lukoil accounts for nearly half of Russia's crude exports. Following the announcement, global oil prices rose by almost 5%. Earlier, Russia's foreign ministry said the country had developed a strong immunity to sanctions and warned that the new measures could harm diplomatic efforts to end the Ukraine war. Ukraine, on the other hand, has welcomed the US sanctions. President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Trump for what he called a resolute and well-targeted decision.
Of 19th package of sanctions is crucial for us. Thank you so much. And today it goes together with the yesterday's decisions of President Trump on energy, also sanctions package. We waited for this. God bless, it will work. And this is very important.
Zelensky also praised the European Union's plan to explore new funding for Ukraine for 2 more years, possibly using frozen Russian assets. Meanwhile, reports of Russian drone incursions in several NATO nations and a rise in tensions between both sides prompted Russia to issue a nuclear warning. Russia's foreign ministry recently stated that tensions could increase further as some NATO members, in particular Poland, want to abandon restrictions on the deployment of nuclear weapons inside of their countries. As it stands, the new sanctions have deepened economic and diplomatic strains between the two countries. With oil prices rising, global reactions divided, and talks suspended, it remains unclear whether this latest move will bring Moscow closer to the negotiating table or push them further away. And our last story is from Pakistan. The South Asian nation has banned a radical Islamist party following deadly clashes with police. Pakistan has banned Tehreek-e-Laibak Pakistan, also known as TLP, a week after 5 people died in violent clashes near Lahore. The incident erupted as party supporters took to the streets for an anti-Israel protest march ahead of US President Donald Trump's announcement of a ceasefire deal to end the Gaza war. The ban was approved by the cabinet, citing the group's violence and terrorist activities. TLP has rejected the ban, calling it unconstitutional, vindictive, illegal and dictatorial. Tehreek-e-Laibak Pakistan is a Sunni Muslim organisation. It is known for its hardline stance on blasphemy laws. It entered politics in 2016 and became the 4th largest party in the 2018 elections, securing over 2 million votes. The party is known for regular mass rallies focusing on religious and political issues. Pakistan has banned the Islamist party for the 2nd time in 4 years. TLP also faced a ban in 2021, which was later lifted. The Pakistan government accused TLP of violating the commitments it made when the previous ban was lifted, promising not to resort to violence. The 2021 ban was imposed under the Imran Khan government. The ban highlights Pakistan's ongoing challenge of curbing religious extremism while avoiding conflict with powerful clerics. Blasphemy is punishable by death in Pakistan, and human rights groups say the laws are often misused. Many people have been lynched after accusations of insulting Islam or the Prophet. Parties like TLP have built their political base by defending blasphemy laws and calling for violent action against alleged offenders. Large-scale protests, street violence and strikes have become tools to pressure governments to follow religiously conservative demands. Meanwhile, according to reports, since the clashes, TLP leader Saad Rizvi and his brother have been in hiding. Authorities in Punjab province have frozen the group's bank accounts and closed its offices and mosques. As Pakistan moves to clamp down on TLP, the country faces the delicate task of containing violence without igniting further religious tensions. That's all we have on the show today. We will see you again on Monday at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30